I'm so grateful to have you here, Ava, and I wanted to welcome you to the podcast.
Oh,
And your voice has really, just through your social media and other platforms, it's spoken to me just as even as a mom going through the things that you're speaking about, but really starting to give show me that there are these beacons of light out there who are standing up and really making a difference in the world. So thank you so much for doing
oh,
that.
thank you. No, that means a lot. It really does.
Yeah. Can you tell me, I guess, a little bit about your journey to really wanting to make a big impact on your generation?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's kind of been, sorry if you can hear my dog barking.
Okay.
Kind of been my trajectory. Oh my God, he's going crazy.
It's
I don't
okay.
know why.
I can't even hear
Oh,
him.
you
Don't.
can't hear him? Okay, good. Okay. Um, I feel like it's kind of been my trajectory through my whole life, just wanting to make a good impact. I don't know if you know, when I was younger, I was on Dance Moms and I was
Yeah.
kind of torn apart from my body and being tall. And my mom really taught me in that time of bullying and cyberbullying that the best thing you can do is turn that into something empowering and use your story to share it with others and find self-love. I feel like that was something that I had to really find at a really young age. So
Mm.
I started, self love club. I started like a bunch of different things to promote just like positive things on social media because I think it's so important to use our platform for good.
Yeah.
Um, but then when my brother passed away, I feel like it took me a while to get there, but I just wanted to make sure that I was using my story to make a difference and using his story to make a difference because I think that whatever happens, it all happens for a reason. And if that reason is him saving one life by us sharing his story, then I think that that made it somewhat better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your story, I met you at Muse at the beginning of this year. I feel like, yeah. And just I know how much the story of Devin has really shifted your trajectory as well as your whole family.
Yeah.
Um, can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, that journey as well? Like, how has that, because you were always involved in dance and really kind of, even the whole thing with social media and bullying, which is such a big topic on its own.
Yeah.
Um, and we really want to bring more awareness to that because as women and as girls, we go through something that sometimes, actually, a lot of times, boys don't go through. And that is the body shaming, how we look,
Yeah.
how we're dressed. Um, I had horrible acne as a child. And I felt so um, just, unseen
Right.
just because of that, and I was severely bullied by other girls and that whole thing, so even you standing up and talking about that, that's like, you know, such so needed. So then
Thank
when
you.
Devin's yeah, so when Devin's story kinda came in, did it, um yeah, tell me a little bit about that because I'm
Yeah.
kinda curious.
Well, first of all, I think, it's like is what we just talked about. I feel like anything that anyone is going through, whether it's, being bullied or being ashamed of how they look or going through addiction, we all feel so isolated. But I think there's so much power in people sharing that they're going through it because there are millions of people going through the same thing. And I, I think it's so funny because for me, before I did Tall Girl, I don't know why, I was like, "I'm the only girl this tall that's trying to do acting," I felt so alone, and then I had so many people reaching out to me, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm 6'3" as I'm
Yeah,
6'2", and I've been trying to do the same thing, and you really inspire me, and I'm like, "Oh my god, they're out there." So, yeah, I feel like we make ourselves feel so alone, so sharing it is just really powerful. But, as for the whole thing that happened with Devin, I mean, it was, extremely sudden. My brother, he struggled with anxiety and uh, self-medicating from, I would say, the age of 16. Um,
Mm,
a lot of it started with, well, it started, he actually told my mom and I that it started with being diagnosed with ADHD and getting on Adderall.
mm.
He was only on it for a few months because my mom pulled him off of it because she was like, "You're not acting like a human."
Right,
Um,
right.
but he was like, that was that taste of having that feeling, and I just wanted to have that again because I was going through so much in his mind, and so he felt that he needed that. So that was kind of the start of it. But then when he was 20, he got clean. So he was clean for 2 years. We were extremely proud of him. As you know, it's such
Yeah.
a hard thing for them to go through, and we were just by his side going through it with him, ups and downs, one step forward, two step back,
Yes. Yes.
but during COVID, it was 2021 February. He was just going through some things, was having a hard time shutting his mind off and going to sleep, and so he decided to order a Percocet from a dealer that he had used before, and it was a solid fentanyl pill. It was 4 milligrams of fentanyl, and that's all it was. So he obviously had no idea, and he passed away instantly. So
Mm,
um, my mom and I found him the next morning, and that's just like when they say your life changes, it just no one had ever expected that. My brother and I, we had the most incredible relationship. We were just best friends, and my
mhm,
mom and I and him were just so close. Um, so first of all, I'm like super
mm.
grateful to have that time. We had quarantine, as crazy as it sounds, we were together the most we were ever together.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that shattered our whole world. And on top of it, we had no idea what fentanyl was at all.
Mm,
And when the medics came in, they saw him and were like, it's fentanyl, right when we were there. So that just
mm,
shows you like how many
mm.
people were passing away in Los Angeles from that they could literally identify it on site.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Had he been addicted to fentanyl prior to that?
No, he had never
It
used
wasn't.
fentanyl, and I think that's the reason. I mean, he was a big guy. He was 6'5",
Mhm.
240 pounds, like, in muscle, like, he was a extremely big, healthy dude, and, he I think it was because his tolerance was so low. I don't know of him ever using fentanyl. His, vices were he was, more so Xanax,
Yeah.
was his big thing. So I don't ever know him of using fentanyl, but I think it was just because he didn't have the tolerance for it at all. Like, he had no tolerance because he had been clean
Right.
and washed his body of all of that for 2 years.
Well,
So
yeah, and fentanyl is so much stronger than, let's say, just a normal, Xanax. I mean,
right,
it's blows my mind
right,
that, um, that more people actually aren't addicted to this, to be honest with
right.
you. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's
it
like, I don't know of my brother ever doing coke or heroin, and it's
right.
50 times more potent than heroin. So I can't even imagine, what that does to people's bodies. I mean, I don't even wanna take Motrin most of the time, so I'm like,
No.
I can't even imagine.
I know, and that I mean, that just has to be the most yeah, that's life-changing for you, and, I mean, I'm so sorry because it's everybody's worst fear, right?
Yeah.
And, for you to have to live through that and experience that, I mean, it's yeah,
Yeah, I think the hardest thing with it is it wasn't an overdose. It wasn't a suicide. It wasn't like he didn't want that to happen. He wasn't ready to go. He had so much more to do,
right,
and the fentanyl and what it's doing to these kids is just so unfair. It's just like it they should get what they're asking for.
mhm,
I understand kids are going to experiment, they're going to try things, and for the past
yeah,
time, they've been able to, and now they can't, and it's really
No,
unfortunately.
they
So
can't, it's so dangerous at this point in time. Um, I know we've spoken a little bit about, even having information on, to give to the police. Like, hey, why don't you check out this information that we know?
yeah.
Um, and they just turn their backs.
Yeah, I mean, we had the pills and they told us to give them the pills, so we did that, and then we told them that we had the dealer on Devon's phone. We found the messages on Instagram, and my mom was like, "Okay, I'm gonna call them, let them know I have it," and they never called back. We called multiple times, they never came to get his phone, and that's just so wild to me because I'm like, that dealer's going out and dealing the same
Doing
contaminated product and killing other people,
Yes, it's not
and
just our family, right? It's like everyone is affected in the community.
yeah,
And I
so
had a thought early, recently, about, because as in our Burbank, so my younger son is in the Burbank Unified, and during Halloween, uh, they sent out a message regarding fentanyl and candy, and check all the
right,
candy. It was from the Burbank Police Department. I thought, how dare you send this to me? First of all,
yeah,
when you literally will not take care of, the dealer you have in your community who's dealing to people.
yeah,
Um, and if every family affected by this literally was able to take down that one dealer, we
yeah,
would see such huge shifts in this
yeah,
stuff being brought cleaning off the streets, because
right,
it literally would only take, you know 10 families information to get, 10 people in the community off the street.
right,
And yes, maybe there will be new dealers that pop up, I get that, but the idea that they're going to go after the cartel just blows my mind. Like, the idea that they're putting out there, at least after speaking um to uh the National Crime Prevention Council
yeah,
director, was that they were going to go after um the cartel. Like, that was
yeah,
the
and in the
goal.
cartels, I mean, from my experience, the National Crime Prevention Council is incredible. My mom and I just went to DC for the National Fentanyl Summit there.
Yes.
Um, and it was great. It was very informative. And I have to say my mom and I got up and told our story and we said that the dealer hadn't been followed through with, and they were all mortified, honestly. They were like, how could we let this slip through? But in all honesty, they said that they were going to reach out and make sure that the case was hopefully reopened or something like that, and nothing's happened yet, but we'll see.
Hmm.
um, yeah, but I mean, I talked with the administrator of the DEA and she said the same thing, it's the cartels. They're trying to go after them, but the cartels are huge. They
Yes.
are like a government. They know how to run themselves. They know how to get up and move quickly. They know how to switch people out. Like they are a very full functioning, smart organization.
Organization,
Yeah,
absolutely. And two, it's like, okay, it's being manufactured in China and then brought in through the cartels, through the borders. um but I guess my mind still goes to, well, just, if you can, the cartel still has to give it to dealers that are selling it on the streets, right?
yeah,
If you can somehow start to take out the dealers, you're breaking a chain in the chain of
right.
all of this,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, so many of them are getting away with it, and that's why it's become such a huge thing, you know? I mean, it's like they're literally getting away with murder and nobody's going after them. It's
I
they're
know.
poisoning people. It's like the
I
most
I did have some good positive news that I just recently came across, and that was in Riverside.
yeah,
Riverside County. They shifted. So somebody who's tried as for a fentanyl death, they are up for the death penalty. So they're shifting
right,
that narrative in Riverside, which I think is incredible. And I hope other cities follow, um, because I mean it's not you know gonna change everything, but it's gonna be a step forward, and hopefully there more people are brought to justice.
Right, and that's what's so hard for me is, like, I got on the phone with the DEA and I was talking to him a little bit, and my question has always been, do the dealers know? Because I know that just like anyone, the dealers, they're human beings who have their own story, who have possibly fallen into dealing drugs because they haven't had the opportunities other people have had, So I was trying to come from a place of empathy with that and hoping that
Yeah.
they didn't know what they were doing, but from all of the things that I've heard, they know exactly what's in it. And so that's the thing is just it's just like someone going and murdering someone else when you're dealing that.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. So as much as that's terrifying to hear that someone would have the death penalty, I hope it scares them enough to decide not to do it?
It's a step in the right direction. It's a step because if who knows how many people person's actually caused
Right.
devastation to, right?
Yeah,
Or yeah, and so it's like you can't even do a head count. And so
no,
I feel like if we start to be a lot more aware and a lot stricter with some of this stuff and
yeah,
serious about it, um, I will start to change the narrative over time, and
yeah.
I know they're coming out with all sorts of things like a fentanyl shot that blocks,
I'm like, first of all, can we just
receptor,
tell
and I'm just like,
people what's going on
"What?"
with fentanyl? People need to know. Like, that's the thing that's lacking so much in this situation is like, this is not a broad media. Like, people talk about it here and there. They'll talk about it for a few weeks because 11 kids die in one city, and then it's just like pop culture, just like on to the next thing. This is so much bigger. Like people still don't understand what is happening with fentanyl. They're like, why did he just take fentanyl? I'm like, that's not what happened. That's
Right,
They're fentanyl poisonings. They're not getting
right.
what they order. So it's it's really a thing that I feel like so many people still don't understand. And I think that that's a huge reason why there's so many people still just like buying drugs because they don't know what the consequences could be with the world that we're living in now?
100%. So yes, and there's more poisonings happening than probably people are even aware of, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like people
Oh,
might
for
not
sure.
even know that they took something, but the addiction but what happens too is say that person doesn't doesn't pass, right?
Yeah.
The addiction level that from that point forward is so high
Yeah.
because it starts to restructure the brain in such a way where the person becomes almost like a lab rat, and they
Yeah.
keep going, "Oh, I need that. I have to, oh, I gotta have that. I have to go have to that," over and over and over and over again. And so I through everything that I've been experiencing with this journey, it's like I'm seeing how somebody who never had those behaviors before, never displayed that type of behavior before, I'm seeing that this actually is such a hard cycle to break. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's why, yes,
I think it's
awareness.
the most addictive drug we've ever seen, so I don't think anyone really knows how to handle it. I mean, I can't even imagine my mom and I have talked about that, if Devin would have just become addicted to the drug. We already had gone through detoxing on other drugs that are not even close to as intense. I don't even know what the word is that fentanyl is, or extreme, I guess. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's a part of the because I get this question so much is, why are dealers dealing something that's killing people? And I'm like, it's not killing all people. And the people who would only go to their drug dealer once a month, once a week, are now going to their drug dealer every day to make sure that they have enough fentanyl because it is so addictive and they have 100 million more people on the social media platform that they can pull from. So
Yes.
them losing 100,000 doesn't really matter to them. And that's just like
Yeah, and what do you think about that? Because that is the main, source of connection for kids and dealers, right? Is through Instagram, Snapchat, those platforms.
Mm.
What, what's your, do you have any idea towards a solution for that?
I mean, I'm no tech wizard, so I don't know how it all goes, but I wish that, there's been a lot of safety things that have been created on the apps of just, monitoring different keywords or different things that are going on to make sure, that there's not any violence, that there's not any, nudity. There's not, all of that
Right.
stuff is very monitored. And I don't know why drug dealing isn't at all. I mean, there's literally posts of people posting pills on the counter and being like, "Come get some," like, or DM me now. And the fact that that content isn't being taken down is a little mind blowing to me. So I think that there is definitely a lot of things that social media apps can do, but I also feel like there's always going to be some sort of drug like fentanyl. If we get a fentanyl goes away, China's just going to make something else,
Yeah,
And so it's like we all just need to be smarter and educated and know what our decisions, you know, hold. But as of that, I mean, I think there are things that we can do, but obviously the picture is just it's so big of everything that's
totally.
going on. So
Yes.
I don't know. I think Snapchat's another huge one. I've never personally loved Snapchat. Just the idea of messaging and then it being gone, I just don't think is safe, especially when it's used by so many children. I feel like there's so much bullying and harassment that can
Mm.
happen on Snapchat, and I don't think that it's a very healthy platform. So I haven't had Snapchat in a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never had Snapchat. I just know of it through the, through my son or
Yeah.
through the younger generation. Um, did you experience, so you experienced a lot of bullying yourself
Yeah.
just through social media?
Yeah, I did. And like you said, it's really hard because a lot of it was about my appearance. And I think, growing up as a young teenage girl, your
Mhm.
body's already changing so much. You already have so many insecurities, and having
Right.
hundreds of people on social media tell you that you're too skinny and that you're not eating and that you're too tall and that you're ugly, and just comments like, "I wish you would go in a closet and die,"
Yes.
aren't the greatest. It's really mind-blowing what people say. So I mean, as a dancer as well, with knowing people that are going through anorexia or eating disorders and then being told I was going through one was infuriating. I feel like as a kid grasping the concept of someone who doesn't know you saying those things to you was a
Yes.
really hard thing to me, especially growing up. I was very much of a people pleaser. I wanted to do everything right. I wanted everyone to be happy, and them saying all those things really, really hurt me. So like I said, I think it was
Mm.
just finding the time to just get off and not read it and know that those if I wouldn't take advice from that person, why does their opinion matter, But I still think there's a portion of we're all human and everything that's said to us does affect us at some point. And then I think acknowledging that and be like, okay, yeah, that did hurt, but
Mhm.
I know
Mhm.
I'm a good person and I know that that's not me. And I know that if I go and rage at them and hate them, that's not going to do anything to me for me. So
Right.
I just leave it alone or delete it.
Oh, I have to say, you are absolutely a stunning human being, and I I had the same thing and before social media, right? I wasn't
Yeah,
tall, but I was really thin, and I had girls saying these horrible things to me, about just how skinny I was and all of that stuff. So I can absolutely relate. And my sister's really tall, so
yeah,
she got that from the opposite side as well.
yeah,
And I can say it's really hard for kids to conceptualize that it's not about them. It's
right.
really about the other person and
Yeah.
how they're feeling because
Right.
they are not okay, right? They're not feeling okay. And
Yeah.
so they're projecting out onto you this just like anything they can think of
Right.
because they feel so horrible inside about themselves. And
Yeah.
that's so hard for us to understand when we're younger and our brains are developing and you
Yeah.
know you want everybody to kind of meet you at face value of like this is who I am and
Right.
why would you not want to be my friend and all of those things and then to even try to conceptualize that somebody else has some emotional trauma issue going on is so
Yeah.
weird. It's just not
It
there.
is wild. I've always thought it was so crazy that, we're not born with insecurities. We're not born being like, "Oh, I'm too tall," or "I'm growing too fast," or "I'm too skinny," and it's so weird because I never thought I was too tall until I was told I was too tall. I never thought I was too skinny until someone made a comment about it. So, it's it's just such a mind-blowing thing to me that our insecurities are just from other people's, like you said, trauma, and they're not real, you know? That's, like, such a
Yes.
crazy thing. That's why I think, there's people saying, we wanna I say this in acting, we wanna revert back to that childlike faith just in ourselves and our love for ourselves and the joy
Mhm.
that we have. I think that's something that we are really missing right now. Um, but yeah, it's bullying is it's bad and it's hard, but honestly, I'm extremely thankful for it because it made me a very strong person and it prepared me for
It does.
all of the stuff I was gonna go through in my life. So I think without it, I wouldn't have been able to face the things that I faced.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree.
Yeah,
It makes you very strong and
it does.
because your skin gets thick,
Yeah,
and you start to kind of understand, at least for me, I started to understand that, not everyone thought how I did, or not everybody wanted to be kind the way I did or
right.
whatever. Like it was they
Yeah,
wanted to focus on things I was doing and that was weird, and so it's just it's like, okay. I mean, and I wanna say, it does get easier as you get older and you do kinda grow out of things, It does.
yeah.
And, but when you have to deal with it with your own kids, at least for me, man, it makes you a very fierce mama
I'm
'cause
sure.
you
I'm
know
scared for that moment.
I know you have a long ways to go, but you're just like, "Mm-mm, you want me to take you yeah, let's go around the corner here and we'll have a talk." Like, we're
So
not doing
funny.
we're not doing that. But,
Yeah,
yeah, no, good I just I think it's, the fact that you get to speak out even about all of that and just girls really need to hear that message because we are not
everyone,
meant we're not flawless. We're not,
right,
and we're gonna be who we are, but it would just to make it okay. Like,
yeah,
it's okay to be because being tall is actually beautiful,
right,
just like being short,
yeah.
and all these things that it's like, how can we shift the perspective of the youth to understand a broader perspective?
Yeah, and I think it's not even the youth. I think it's kind of ingrained in our society now. That's what identified the clothing brand that we started really stands for because my brother
Yes.
was the one who
Tell
actually
me about this. I
um
was so excited to hear about this.
yeah, so actually my brother named it the night before he passed. My mom and I and my brother were all in our living room just like talking about this brand that we wanted to start together and we wanted it to be a clothing brand but also have an underlying message of something that we really felt needed to be said through clothing and we had been my mom has like a Trader Joe's paper bag. Don't know why
Uh-huh.
that's what she chose to write on because we do have paper in our house. But she just wrote it all of the names that we were thinking and we chose Identified that night. And so after we went through, got through like the cloud and the haze of everything that happened the following weeks, my mom and I looked at each other and we were like, we need to make this. We need to make it
Mhm.
happen because my brother chose identified because in his life and in so many people's lives, we're labeled by society. We're told that we are one thing. I'm labeled as tall all the freaking time. And we're so much more than that. My brother
Right.
was labeled by the mistakes he made, by, you know, having drug use, by going through all of the things that he went through. And or labeled by your sexual orientation, who you love, or your race. And at the end of the day, we're all human. And I think that that is the message that we really, really need to hear right now is that we're all on one level, we're all different, we're all unique, we're all beautiful, but we are all human. And we need to look at each other that way, and we need to respect each other that way, and we need to have empathy for each other. And so that is identified in everything that we stand for as a brand, which I think is just pretty amazing.
I love it. And where can people buy this
They
wonderful
can buy it at
brand?
identifiedclo.com. Our IG is identifiedclo. So CLO,
I love
identified CLO. Yeah, so we're really excited. We just launched our second line, and it actually has one of my brother's journal entries in it, that says, don't judge or compare yourself to others. Everyone is human. They have their own stories too. And I think
Mhm.
that's like pretty cool. I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't journal stuff that
very cool.
that
I
crazy.
know. That's
Um,
it's with just beyond his years and wisdom, right?
it really was. And I think that catered to what he went through in his life because he was just so intelligent and so smart and he wanted so much for himself. And I think he wanted to be the best in everything and strive, and he wanted to buy me my first car. He wanted to like buy my mom a house. He just everything he wanted. He was such a giving person, but
Oh,
he wanted to do a lot, and it was, I think, hard for him to face that. I mean, he was only 23, but that
yeah.
he wasn't there yet. I think that was really hard for him.
It is hard. You know what? I've noticed that most with with your generation, especially, is that they're not there yet. They
Yeah.
they think they're supposed to be somewhere
Yeah.
that they're like, I'm not, I haven't done it yet. And they're I think the people that you guys have maybe as idols or in your generation is they made a lot of money really young.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they kind of had a lot come to them by by 23.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that, and I've noticed there's this element of feeling like a bit of a like failure,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
or like you're not worthy of it, or like you're doing something
like
wrong,
you're
or
doing something wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so he really struggled with that, but yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, even
Mhm.
I feel like it's the age of social media. We now know what everyone is doing and how much they're making and what their life looks like, but in reality, it's really funny. I mean, living here in LA, I
Mhm.
see a lot of those people that have a lot of followers and all of that, and it's like nobody's life really looks like that. And
Yeah.
I think that it's like we have this image of what we think people's lives are, and they're making a bunch of money and they're traveling and they have a boyfriend and all of this, but it's like, again, they're also human and they're also going through the same shit that we are. So
Yeah.
I feel like that also caters to all of that, just wanting a lot of things that aren't really
Well,
um
that aren't real,
attainable. Yeah,
right? There's a in astrology, I always kind of point this back to this kind of Neptune and Pisces phase where people have very delusional idea of what reality is.
right.
And social media plays into that perfectly
Yeah,
because you're seeing, a picture in someone's picture album of a great time that they had
right.
2 days ago or that day or whatever. And it's like going through a photo album and you think, "Oh, I know this person now,"
Yeah,
and you really don't because
right.
you don't know what is happening in the background of that. You don't know, maybe they just lost someone, maybe they have their own struggles with addiction. Like, you
Yeah.
just have no clue. And so it it's almost like how in the 80s, I guess, we had TV, obviously. It's not that old.
Yeah,
Um,
television.
we had television, this amazing thing at the time. But I used to watch like not reality television, but it would be like Jerry Springer or Ricky Lake or something like that, and you would see these situations of these people. And I remember I kind of binged on that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But even then, I was like that. I knew it wasn't real because it didn't relate to me at all,
right.
but it was entertaining to
Yeah.
some level. Now it's like we're seeing everyone's lives, and it's
Like, we
glamorized.
need to look at it that way, though. We need to look at it as be like,
We
"This is
need to look at
extremely
it.
entertaining.
Yes,
I'm
we need to
enjoying this
look at it
reality."
as Jerry Springer
Yes.
style, content, where
Oh,
it's
it's
like,
true.
okay, well, that guy just hit that other guy. Like, okay, that's
Right.
a little,
I know,
little
it's
too
so funny.
much.
We were talking about that too. I was just thankfully being in LA and acting, I've had the opportunity to go to many like incredible events that have been put on. But it's so funny because I was talking to someone there and I was like, what do people think that these are? Like, as an actress walking in there, you like go on the carpet, whatever, and then you're just thrown in this room of random people that you've never met before that are in the industry, and you're all supposed to just like talk. And I don't know, it's really interesting. I'm like, I feel like that's the thing. It's just perspective and the perception of what it is. Just because it looks like this grand fun time, most of us are just like socially anxious the whole
Yeah.
time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like,
Um,
I'm just gonna stand over here with my
yeah.
drink in the corner.
You're like, do I fangirl or do I like
I
are
know.
we trying to be friends? I don't know what to say. And then you're just kind of standing in the middle, you know.
In this beautiful outfit that
Yeah.
you took, a week to
You're like,
plan.
right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, my feet are hurting. Do I leave? Do I eat? I
It's
don't
like it's like being in an because I've had that experience too. It's like being pushed into kind of this social situation where you don't really know anyone, and and exactly that, you're just kind of are like, should I talk to somebody? What do we talk about?
right?
Like,
Um,
what if I sound like an idiot? I go
exactly.
right back.
It's
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
wild, but yeah, I mean, even I don't think anyone for a long time really knew what I went through with my brother either. I mean,
Mhm.
my brother passed a month before I went and shot Tall Girl 2. I
Oh
was doing chemistry reads actually, like via Zoom at my house, and my brother and I was there like listening. Um, and then I was supposed to do a chemistry read the day after he passed, actually, with another round of actors, and they they were so great. They like pushed everything back and were like, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're going to be able to do it?" And honestly, I'm so thankful that I had that to go to, of just
my.
being able to do something that I love and something that really brings me joy in a time that was just not easy at all to
Not
get
joyful.
through. But I also feel like the most terrifying thing was leaving filming and going home and like realizing that I really had to grieve and I really had to deal with it and I had to be in the house and be around the places that him and I were, you know? And so anyways, it took me a long time to get where I am now to be able to speak about it, but I don't think a lot of people really knew what I was going through during that whole time.
Oh my gosh. And I can imagine the trauma. I mean, that's incredible that you were able to take on that role during that time, you know? But it's almost like thank God for it.
Oh my god, I'm so grateful for it. I mean, and I know, like, he would have been so mad if I didn't do it, you know? I feel like he was behind me being like, "Go, please do this, have a good time." Yeah, and everyone was just so supportive. I remember being on a call before with the girl who plays my sister, Sabrina, and she was like, "If you ever need to leave, if you ever need to do anything, like, I'm
Mhm,
here for you. You can come, like, cry in my trailer, like, anything you need.
mhm.
Just don't feel like you have to be together all the time." And that was such a freeing thing for me that I felt just extremely supported through the whole process, you know?
Oh, it's and because 'cause you're not alone, right?
No, no.
You're not alone, and just being able to even share this now and tell people your story, it's so powerful. I can't even tell you. People it will I don't know, even just me hearing it, it's so inspirational.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
thank you. What is next for you?
What is next?
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of identified. We've really been putting everything that we have into creating a clothing brand, which has been a really big learning curve for us, but something that's I feel like so fulfilling and something that we've really
yeah,
loved doing, and just seeing people wearing our clothes has been the most wild thing. But we also created the Devin Michael Foundation, which is a nonprofit that's going to be for mental health awareness and fentanyl awareness, but we're also wanting to support individuals who are going through any sort of addiction or mental health crisis through their own recovery. Because I wish that I had someone that could help, with Devin, and I think that that's something really important. And my mom and I would love to help individuals, see exactly where the money is going and really truly help someone get back on their feet. Because I think that that is just like the most beautiful thing. Um,
right.
so, and a portion of the proceeds from Identify go to the Devin Michael Foundation as well.
Oh,
So
it's
we're
amazing.
really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
I also wrote a script as well, that's loosely based on what I went through with my brother, because I think that one of the best things, places of awareness, is the entertainment industry and shows and films, and that's
Mhm.
where my generation is getting a lot of their, I feel like, education
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah,
But I also feel like so many shows glorify drugs, and I think that there needs to be an end to that. It's not a trendy thing, it's not the cool thing to do, and, we really need to show what happens and how it can tear apart your family and the consequences that it does have now. So
yeah.
that is something that I've been working on and pitching, and hopefully that will come to fruition here soon. So
I love it. I mean, that's a lot. All of those things are a lot.
it is.
But just so you know too, if you ever need guidance just in the clothing uh, line business, I that's how I started. I started
Oh,
with my own clothing line for kids. I had my kids clothing line that I had all the way through till I bought my first store.
it's
So
amazing.
I
Yeah,
love
I love
I
that.
love I love apparel and just all the things you could do with it. I think I love the kids part of it because I could do whatever I wanted, but
Yeah,
just being able to build that out and really it it's somebody being able to take something home as
yeah,
well. And
yeah,
then your message just becomes inspirational on a whole nother level, right?
yeah.
So I think I applaud that. And if you need any help, because I did that was my life before 30. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole 'nother beast that we're learning, but it's been great. I feel like it's a way for people to be a part of this community and support things that are
Mhm.
right. Everyone, whether they're going through their own mental health crisis, addiction, or not at
Right.
all, and they just like to wear sweats.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
so
but the mental health element, we talk about it a lot, in my store and with our close knit staff, but it is um it is so necessary to take care of your mental health. I mean,
yeah,
it is really coming to kind of crisis mode with people who have been isolated for so long,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
yeah, they're going into places in their minds that are just it's like if we can just start to help to shift that perspective and give inspiration and courage and hope for the future.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think it's great how much awareness there has been just with social media of people, realizing that anxiety is a more common thing than we were thought before. I mean, I can't even imagine 100 years ago when people were going through that and nobody knew what it was and nobody was talking about it, and you're just truthfully going through it alone. So
yes.
I think
Well,
it's very
and I start to think too is like um with different generations, there's different kind of uh traumas that they go through.
yeah,
And because anxiety wasn't big for me, or
right,
anybody in my, that
yeah,
wasn't like the thing. It was more a lot of depression, kind of this if you look back at like the 90s, like Nirvana and that just sullen, sullenness. That was my generation. It felt like it was
right,
like kind of this teenage angst, but not
right,
I was never anxious about anything. Like I
right,
wasn't feeling that. But then when I start to see like the late 90s into the 2000s and that and my kid, my older son, you guys deal with so much anxiety. And I don't know
yeah.
if it came from the adding the element of social media
Yeah,
or
I think it's a
yeah,
big part of it, but I also think it's like anxiety is a normal thing. Like
totally.
I feel anxiety all the time. I don't take medication for it because I believe that like we have the ability in our bodies to take a breath and calm it down. And also, I mean, I'm taught this in acting that being nervous and being excited are the same exact feelings in the body, So I feel like we all experience some form of anxiety,
Yeah.
just with something big coming up or something happening. But I also remember like so many people asking my mom and I, they're like, what are you taking for after my brother passed? When they're like, aren't you depressed? Like, what are you taking? You need to make sure. And I'm like, no, we're depressed because of something that happened. I don't need a pill to make me feel better because I
Right.
need to feel this. Like, there's a reason that I'm feeling it, and that's okay. And so I think with the mental health that's going on now is like just really accepting the
Mm,
range of emotion and the range of feelings that we have as humans and knowing that we're all going through it and that's okay. But I think, I mean, I'm very anti pills, and that is
of course.
just me, who I am, and obviously for what I've gone through, because I truly feel like our bodies have the ability to heal themselves. And I
They
would love
do.
to see that really be shown through the mental health awareness. So
I
we'll see.
love that. I love that. No. And let's like end with that because that note is so true. And I always say that same thing is like you have the ability and the power within you to truly heal your thoughts,
Yeah,
your mind especially and shift that into something new. Because it's a breakdown of the old paradigm where back in the 50s, I mean, if you think about it, back in the 50s, if somebody lost somebody or they went through a divorce or they went through some traumatic event, they put them on Valium,
right.
right? So this is clearing up that old past lineage trauma of being put on some medication because you're experiencing something,
Right,
right?
and I think that, like, builds up as well, it's we all know that we have to deal with it at some point,
Yes.
it's just kind of a Band-Aid that we keep putting on stuff, and I think that's why we have, some sort of generational trauma is because we haven't dealt with it, so I think it's really important, as hard as it is to deal with it, the aftermath is so much easier because you have, so
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, no, of course, thank you.
I absolutely enjoyed this conversation and just how much you have to share, how much knowledge you have to share. So, thank you.